Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host today, Nathaniel. We are pleased to have our special guest today, Jackie Rubio, who is really just a profoundly beautiful presence. Just had the opportunity to meet you. Jackie, you have such a profound story and message to share with the world around love, around connecting to long lost loved ones. You yourself are a spiritual intuitive and a Reiki master, and you are the author of Murder to Messages, which is inspired from the murder of your son Devyne in 2022, correct? And I'm thrilled to bring you on. This is such a profound story, and you've brought something to light that I know has affected many people, losing loved ones, and often um, in sudden and horrendous ways, and you're bringing a light to the world. So, welcome to the Love Pod. I'd love for you to share more about who you are and to yeah, share your story with us. And I'd love to have a deep conversation with you. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel. I appreciate that introduction, and you just have such a sweet presence about you. I think that you invoke sympathy and empathy. I was already starting to tear up just
Mm.
like before we got started, so you'll have to excuse me if some emotions come to play during our interview. My name's Jackie Suzanne Rubio, and I've led a very colorful life. I've had, a lot of trauma that most people, don't have or, wouldn't want to speak out about. I've had a rough childhood, physical, emotional, sexual abuse, and then I went right into repeating family patterns. I was a teen mom. I was pregnant at 15. I had 4 kids by the time I was 23. I was hooked on methamphetamines for a while. I chose terrible partners with deep wounds, the same that I experienced as a child. So I brought 4 kids into the world being completely unhealed, unaware, and just like, just a steamroller, just steamrolling through life and bringing those babies with me. So, um, I experienced quite a bit of, hardship, and I I just raised my kids in a dysfunctional way. I did get through being, hooked on the methamphetamines, but I eventually just really became a hardcore alcoholic. And that's a big part of my story. I loved my kids deeply. I fought for my children. I made sure that, that DHS didn't take them. I, divorced my partner because to keep them safe. There were so many things that I did as a strong woman, but I just couldn't stop the drinking and the alcoholism. So they had to get raised by a single mom in really chaotic environment and with alcoholism. So the story revolves around my oldest son, Devyne. He was so much different than the rest of my kids. He was really polite and respectful, and he was very. I did spend quite a bit of time in church. It's how I got through my meth addiction. It's how I got through a lot of the things that I went through. Um, Before the drinking really took over. And Devyne loved church. He loved
Mm.
church members. He loved youth pastors. He loved pastors and pastors' wives. He loved the more of
Mm.
the like a two-parent household where the mom stayed home and made cookies, and that just was not his mom,
Mm.
and I had younger children, and they were, really had behavioral issues and mental issues on top of me being, an alcoholic and doing the very best that I could, but it became really chaotic in our house, and Devyne
Mm.
really pulled away. He he never touched alcohol, drugs. He was really like a black
Mm.
and white, super moral kid. Um, and he would spend his holidays at the pastor's house and the youth pastor's house. He just didn't want to be in the environment that was our family.
Mm.
And he actually, he was very like I said, very upstanding, moral kid. So he saved himself from marriage, and he married a gal who was in his youth group. So he was 20 and she was 18. And she was his first partner. Um, and the marriage, as soon as they got married, she got pregnant, and it just wasn't a good marriage for him. She had some real issues as soon as she had that baby. He wasn't allowed to sleep in the bedroom with her anymore. She wouldn't let him hold him sometimes. She wouldn't let his family come around the baby at all. She definitely had some real strange vibes, I guess, on how protective she was of him. And within, I don't know, less than a couple of years, she kicked Devyne out. And she actually she had an immediate same-sex partner relationship. And that was really confusing for my son because, of the fact that they were both in church. They had, he thought the same boundaries, the same moral ideas, things like that. So that was really confusing for him. And she even became more protective of the time that anybody spent with the baby. She breastfed him until he was like 3.5. So in the state of Oregon, my son wasn't allowed to have overnight visits or anything like that because the child was being breastfed. So it really like took his ability to be even a co-parent away. And then things kind of started to get better. I had a very horrible experience. I had a near-death experience without the stories to come back from, but I had an alcohol relapse, and I set myself and my home on fire, and I was actually deceased, and they were able to resuscitate me, and they flew me to the burn unit in Texas, Galveston, Texas, and I was in a coma for 10 days. I spent 6 weeks in that burn unit. I had like 33% of my body burned. I had third-degree burns. I had 3 or 4 skin graft surgeries. It was just so painful. And I like that's the last time I had a drink was September 7th of 2020. And I immediately started to rebuild my relationship with my kids. Like that was like the biggest part of getting sober was like, okay, like I want to be a mother. I mean, and I was a mother, but I wanted to literally genuinely be able to be there for them without my own stuff, always getting in the way. And Devyne was really strong with me. He had such clear boundaries. He loved me, and he just knew that I was going to do what I was going to do, and I was not going to do it around him. So and I was not going to do that around my grandson either. He was really, really clear on that. His boundaries were very tight. And in some ways, I think it inspired me to try harder, to work harder, to gain, my relationship back with him. So I did that, and I came back to Oregon where he lived at, and he was just going through a horrible, horrible time with the ex-wife. She was taking his visits away and accusing him of terrible things that weren't feasible. Like the kind of abuse that she was saying that happened to Grayson, that my grandson, was like that he got thrown down 5 flights of stairs. He had a gun put to his head. I mean, these were really outlandish, and they were the kind of things that could easily be proven or disproven. And she had this poor child at the doctor every single day over something. So she was really kind of a hypochondriac, and obviously there was no merit to the accusation. So he was able to go to court, and he was proving himself that he never got arrested for this or anything. It took some time, but it was easy to get proven that he obviously didn't do any of this stuff. So he started to get his visits back, and then he decided to do kind of what happened in the things she was saying and the way that she was making the child behave, that it wasn't really a safe environment. Something was really deeply, deeply wrong. So he started to sue her for full custody. And he just he was 28. He was about 27 at that time, and he had just started to kind of come to life. He had met another girl. He had a fiance. He was kind of understanding that life wasn't really black and white. He was understanding, like, learning some empathy, and just really opening himself up to living his life. He had to take a second job to pay for his custody hearings and stuff, and they had to use their wedding savings to do that as well. So I came back to Oregon, like, prepared to kind of help financially, and just to be able to walk through those court doors with him, because I know so many men lose their rights to their children because they just get bullied into it. It's really can be difficult, and I didn't want that to happen to him. I wanted him to feel supported so that he could continue to fight for his child, fight for his rights. And, things were definitely getting better for Devyne and I. We were closer. It cracked me up because his fiance was from a really big family, a loud family. They would party a little bit, so it was kind of funny that everything he didn't want to do as a child is kind of like found this later, but it was in a good way. These were like kind, loving people. They were joyful. They always had, big plans. And it really made me so happy to see that he was involved in that. Like I said, he was just kind of starting to live his life. And on December 16th of 2022, his fiance and I were on the phone together, and we were making plans. We were talking about, Christmas. He was going to get my grandson for Christmas that year. We were all going to be together. It was just a real joyful conversation. Can I bring my dog? Where am I going to stay? How is it going to go? And then, he had, because of her accusations and because of her just erratic behavior, he had actually installed a dash cam on his car, and he'd really asked her to come and meet him at the police station to do any kind of swap. And she wouldn't do that. And it was in the paperwork that he had to go to her home. So he went to her home. But he installed a dash cam just so it would pick up, like, she couldn't accuse him of anything. It would just be like, and he never went there by himself. But this was different because it was so close to Christmas, and his fiance and her whole family was Christmas shopping and things like that. So, he just made the decision that day to go by himself, and he pulled up. He put the camera on the doorstep like he always did, and she opened the door with no word spoken and shot and killed him. No fight between them, no words spoken between them. And it was, my 7-year-old grandson was in the home. It was horrific. He never made it to the hospital. I mean, he was deceased. She actually fired 9 times into him. And that started just a journey that most people, can't even imagine. And there were some other things that went with that. Because his mother had full custody of him, even though the murder was captured on video in the state of Oregon, she was proven innocent until proven guilty. So she maintained custody of my grandson, and from jail had the ability to dictate who had him, where he went, all of that. And so I went to court, and I fought like crazy. I actually ended up in bankruptcy over the legal fees because, I thought that his son should be with us. But that's not the way that it has went. So it's been about 3 years almost since I've seen my grandson. He's been, just alienated from me like he was alienated from my son. So I know that's a long, hard, sad story for people to listen to. And I always feel worried because I don't want it to land so heavy on people's hearts. But I want people to know that's the reality of my life, of who I am, of how, things were for me. But I also want them to know, what happens on the other side of that. Sobriety, for one. I've kept my sobriety through the murder, through the courts taking my grandson. Um, and it's a gift. It's a gift for my son.
Mm.
When he left, when he transitioned, I've never had one single craving to have a drink.
Mm.
So I know that he gave me that gift. And I'm so grateful for it, because if I were to drink again, I would not be able to be a mother to my three surviving children. I would not be able to be a grandma to, the potential and the grandchild I have. So I can just say that that's a beautiful gift. I wish that he didn't have to leave that, that way for me to receive it, but it is, it is a gift from him.
Well, my heart goes out to you, Jackie. I mean, what a profound story. And I know you just touched a little bit on how you have, come out the other side. I know there's more. As I understand, he's continued communications with you. And my heart just goes out to you and your family. Obviously, that is an unimaginable experience to go through as a parent, to lose a child in that way, or really ever to lose a child, especially in a violent way like that. And I know you're not alone in that. And so my wish and prayer is that this conversation reaches some people that need to hear these messages, and to know that there is light and there is love after an ordeal like this. So, can you speak a little bit more about that? I see you holding a plush toy there. Um,
Oh yeah, it's my Reiki bunny. I don't know.
uh,
I guess it brings me a little comfort.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I thought you were going to show us. Yeah, how about can you? I think we often can get um, limited in our perception of reality from this human perspective, and it can be very easy um, to get caught in our beliefs of the things that happen and the meanings we give those things, and sometimes we forget that life is much larger, and I like to think of it as infinite and eternal. And this journey that we're on in our Earth walk is part of that. And I'm very interested to hear more about the book that you've written, A Murder to Messages, and how your son has been communicating with you. You said he's given you the gift of sobriety, which I think is really beautiful because, not only are you more present with your children, you're also able to be a light in our world more, not being weighed under by such a devastating addiction like alcoholism is. And my background is actually in Indigenous wellness addictions prevention, so I've been, trained in a number of different things from an Indigenous perspective on addictions and things. So I have an awareness of that. So would you like to share more about what that journey has led? And I realize it's only a few years ago, so I still imagine a lot of this is very fresh for you. And yeah, so I just invite you to share.
Yeah, so the book from Murder to Messages, it goes into quite a bit of detail on the early signs and my struggle with feeling worthy because of how he was raised. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
your audience can even imagine the amount of alcoholism and addiction. You already come with a lot of guilt. Moms already come with a lot of guilt, and then you get into a situation where it feels like his life is over and it's so final, the finality, and the guilt comes, and you just think about every time, every crappy parenting move you made, every time you didn't talk when they asked you for, just all these things. It's really rough. And so I feel like that worthiness feeling and that guilt feeling really blocked me from understanding what was happening after he passed away. And the religious time I spent in church, that impacted me quite a bit. There was like fear, a lot of fear, and a lot of misunderstanding. I had comfort that he was with Jesus because he loved Jesus, and I know that he was baptized. And if you look at it like and from that point of view, I was pretty rest assured that my son was going to be in heaven. Maybe not me, but he was. So um, those signs started coming early, and boy, the belief systems and when you're in that deep of grief, you'll be surprised how your mind will shift, how You're so desperate to know where your child is. You're so desperate to know what happens after this life ends, that you're much more open and much more willing, um, to look for things, to be open to things, to hear things. So I just was really lucky because Devyne was very pushy. And which is funny because in life he was very shy and he was
Mm.
really standoffish. But after he passed, he was very pushy.
Mm.
His signs were he just now, especially, I'm so glad that I documented them. A lot of them are in the books. There's pictures to go with it, things
Mm.
like that. So I'm so glad that he was, because I was not in the mindset to accept them. I
Mm.
didn't, I didn't understand. But the best case scenario for Devyne and I's communication is he he would. So when I was heavily grieving, and I would like drive and go to family members and kind of go from one state to another to a family member to just get comfort. I don't know what to do with myself. And so 16 hours of driving, a lot straight, 20 hours of straight driving, and I would hear like his voice in my head, and I always thought, well, if he were alive, this is what he would tell me. And so I kind of looked at it like that.
Mm.
And then I noticed that I was so profoundly drawn to write down what I thought he would say if he were alive.
Mm.
So, and I mean, it's the truth. Like, I would go to restaurants on my travels, and I don't know what it was. I don't know, since it's been in isolation in the car for so long. I'd go into a restaurant where there's human beings doing human stuff, and I just couldn't stop crying. I would literally just sit at these, booths and just cry, ugly cry too. Not just a tear here and there. And I remember, like, he would tell me, I could hear him if he were alive. This is what I'd say: "Ma, you're crying so hard, you're getting boogers on your face. Like, wipe your face, wash your face." And he was always such a smarty pants to me. And so I would stop what I was doing and I would write, even if it was a napkin or a receipt next to me, I'd write the date and I'd say, if Devyne were alive, this is what he would have told me.
Mm.
And I wasn't together enough to journal or anything like that. But boy, I would get very clear. If Devyne were here, this is what he would say to me. Even if I was driving down the highway, I'd pull over and I'd write it down on something. And I was able to. In the meantime, I got some. I went down the spiritual YouTube rabbit hole, I call it. I wrote about it in the book. Well, you get on YouTube and you never know what you're gonna get up to the next morning. Like, you could start with like a gentle breathing exercise and end up, oh my gosh, who knows? Channeling aliens. So it was just, but I had found some substantial, concrete help.
Mm.
One, I do speak about her in my book. She was a major reason why I came out of this okay. A medium named Suzanne Giesman. Her story is incredible. Was a Navy captain destroyer. Or no, she's married to a Navy captain destroyer. She was Navy captain heir to the chairman of the president of the United States. She comes from a major, left brain background, and she's a hell of a medium, and she's a heck of a spiritual teacher. So I found her, and I really felt comfortable with what she was teaching, and that it made me feel like I wasn't just crazy or this grieving mom just trying to grasp at straws. So I went on a cruise that she was on, and that's where I met my support group, my tribe, the Helping Parents Heal.
Mm.
They are a support group for parents who've lost children, and they go way further in their support. You're allowed to talk about the afterlife, and they give you, safe referrals and references and things. So, like, mediums and people in science about where your consciousness goes,
Mhm.
Reiki, things like that. So I got to go be a part of this and meet all these other parents. And it was about 8 months after Devyne, and I felt like I belonged. I felt like I wasn't crazy. I felt like I wasn't mentally ill trying to hear from my child. It felt real. And they all felt it real too. And they were, doctors and lawyers and teachers. And, they weren't, ex meth addicts who were hearing from their child. So it really did help me a lot. And I met a woman on there. She actually was my roommate, and she had lost a son, and she gave me Reiki. And oh my goodness, for the first time in 8 months, I felt peace. It was brief. It was a 30-minute thing, but I was at peace. I don't know what it was. I had a reprieve from the grief, from the bitterness, from the hatred that I was, feeling for everyone. And I just said to myself, I don't know what this is, but I need to learn to do it. I want to do this for other people, because if I can give another mom this reprieve, I want to do it. So Reiki was a huge part of my story. And it was not but maybe a month later that I went and took my first Reiki attunement. So yeah, I give other parents Reiki, and it's been a big part of my growth. But what I did find out was I took an automatic writing class and realized I've been automatic writing. This is not me hearing what he would have said if he were alive. This is him talking to me. This is him being funny and sarcastic and silly and stubborn, and his absolute personality. Anytime I want to hear him, he talks to me, and I can just write it down. And so that was a big oh my gosh moment. I was connecting to him. He was telling me this. It's not that I was imagining what if he was alive. And then I got to do it intentional. So then I got to, create this, open my Reiki, create the space, get quiet, put some binaural beats on. And when I started to write that way, it became so much deeper. He would talk about we. It wasn't mom from me anymore. It was we. It's like a collective of, and he would talk a lot about oneness, and he would talk a lot about love. Everything was love. And I felt like he was giving me secrets to the universe sometimes. He would tell me things. And so the automatic writings, they really opened up, bigger than just, him telling me to wipe my boogers off my face, and they really so a lot of the automatic writings are, I keep them, and I put some of them in the book. They mean a lot, and they can be really poetic, and some of the meaning, the spiritual concept, I think is even over my head, even though it's been a couple years of writing with him like that. And then I did some other things. I did past life regressions, and I just remember thinking, if I can find that we've lived a life before this together, then I can find that we're going to live another life together. He's not just going to be gone forever. And those past life regressions are, I wrote some, this is shocking what you'll find about the dynamics with him, his ex-wife who murdered him, me. They were just mind-blowing. And in that past life regression, then he started to just talk to her. Devyne just started to talk out of my mouth to the practitioner. And he was his normal funny self, joking around and, teasing her and giving her romantic life advice. It was just so crazy. And it was recorded. So I sent that to, a few mediums and some psychic friends and, other moms who were, sort of further along the path than I was. And everybody was like, Jackie, this is real. This is real. And so then I started to be able to more intentionally, speak. And he doesn't speak a lot. It's usually the collective, the we, that will come through and they speak. And they've taught me a lot. I do a whole lineage line healing that Devyne wanted. And I guess it's, from what I can understand, it's for his son, and in case he ever reincarnates in our line, he wants certain things healed. So I did that on myself, and then they taught me how to do it on others. So yeah, it's been a hard, thing to go through. And then, but what would have been hard is if I went through this and nothing ever helped anybody,
Mm.
So I'm at the point now where I do free group Reiki healings. My coach and I do some free, I started to do quantum healings. And um, Devin just I didn't know that I was psychic because I was drunk so much, that it was probably happening and I just didn't know it. But
Mm.
he really helped me understand, like, I can get quiet. I could be in front of a client and it's just like things just come in. And sometimes it's him that tells me, and sometimes they just come in. And it's a lot of relationship stuff. It's a lot of ancestral things, is kind of seems to be where my forte is. I've not been able to pick the lottery ticket, so I don't know if I'm that good of a psychic. But I keep telling him, I'm like, why are you telling me that, somebody's relationship is damaged? Why can't you just give me the lottery tickets? I will buy them a therapist.
Oh, well, I love how you bring some humor into this, Jackie. And, we all know, if you look statistically, winning the lottery doesn't often solve the problems we like it to solve. But expanding our consciousness does. And actually, I was wondering as you were talking, I like to just listen. I don't really like to think very much when people are talking. So first of all, I'd really just like to say thank you for sharing such a profound story with like the darkness and the light and how you found your light and you're on your journey of awakening and now helping others. I think it's really beautiful. And I think it's really beautiful that you've maintained such a conscious connection with your son. And none of what you said is surprising to me at all. I was wondering, do you feel like you were guided to this particular show by your son because I do have some things to share with you that I feel like aren't not maybe just for you, but for the collective that you're part of the parents who are healing through grieving. And I'd love to include their group in the show notes if you send them to us as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, do you feel like you're on this show in particular? Because before we began the show, you felt like you had particular emotions coming up that you were describing it is not always common for you.
Yeah, so I feel like there are definitely times that Devin just puts human beings in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, and I just have to say yes to it. And there's usually a reason why he put them in front of me,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
for my own healing or for someone
Yeah.
else's healing. And yes, when I came on the show this morning, I was crying, I was feeling overwhelmed. I was like, what is happening? How am I supposed to present myself as an energy healer and, a psychic when I'm openly grieving? But that's my message. And
Mm.
I think that's Devin's message is we want people to understand that, coming from an alcoholic background, coming from guilt and shame and, all of that, I still hear from my son. I still
Mm.
hear from the other side.
Hmm.
It's not, sometimes spirituality can be confusing, and,
Yeah.
it can, you feel like if you're not a vegan, or, if you haven't been, perfect, that you're not going to be able to
Hmm.
obtain, consciousness. And I'm just here to say that's just not freaking true.
Yeah.
I was grieving, my vibration wasn't high, and my son was still here every day to show me that. And his biggest message is there is no death. Like,
Mm.
I mean, he keeps like, there is no death. And once we leave this world, there's nothing but love, you
Yeah.
know. So, like, he'll tease me about getting irritated in traffic or mad because one of the kids didn't finish their dishes or something. Like, Ma, like, seriously, you gotta let that go, because when
Hmm.
there's nothing but love out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say, um that he has a hand in this show and in this situation. And it is called Helping Parents Heal.
Helping
And
out
they're
parents heal.
Helping Parents Heal is a big part of my story. And I've just was able to, um, be a co-facilitator, and we're opening a special branch for parents who lost their children through murder. It's
Okay.
called HAND, It's
Okay.
HAND, which is homicide, abuse, neglect, and domestic violence.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a specialized group.
Hmm.
And, we go through a lot. We go through a lot with
Yeah.
trial. We go through a lot with forgiveness and other people who took our child's life. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm open to any
Yeah. Well,
advice.
well, it's not so much advice. I, if anything, I've had a hard time defining myself on this journey, Jackie. My awakening started in my late teens, and actually one of my first direct experiences was during a very intensive meditation, where I started awakening to memories of previous life experiences. The most poignant of which was actually being in the crowd and witnessing the crucifixion of my brother Yeshua, and feeling very guilty and a lot of anger and pain from being in that experience, watching another murder. Of a master of love and someone who only taught love. And for me, in that instance, I didn't fully comprehend the larger picture, like so many of us do not when we're human beings. Um, and that experience of being in the crowd really opened up a lot of questions to me because I was very much scientifically minded, very left-brained, as you said earlier, very much looking for truth through science. And I struggle with the education systems, but I did very well in them because I was just so adamant at not failing in life. But anyways, all that to say, fast forward about a decade from that point. Well, actually, no, pardon me. Fast forward a couple years from that point, and I spent a lot of time in nature and meditation, contemplation, um, just wondering about what all of this life is and what makes it. And in a moment that I was inspired with two questions of what would our world look like where we all are all truly in alignment with love itself and doing what we love and um, sharing in the abundance of life. Because if all of life truly is love, if that's all that is, why is there so much divide between countries, between people? Why is there poverty or why is there sickness? And in that moments after that, when I stood back up on the path home, a being of light appeared to me in the woods, and I knew that it was Christ. And it was just pure light. He appeared to me in like a segment in three motions, and then he was just standing in front of me in just pure brotherly love. And I didn't know why he appeared to me because at that point I was very much still like probably more agnostic, but I would have described myself more as atheistic. I didn't really, fully embrace spirituality in that sense. But I just had philosophical questions about where we all come from. And anyways, I felt like his presence guided me through many stepping stones in my life. I went to various different, churches and groups and things to try to understand like why did he appear to me, but there was always this abrasiveness that I couldn't resolve within myself. It didn't feel like I belonged in that space. I always found my comfort was in nature. And anyways, about 10 years after that, I was working at an Indigenous center. I'd been guided to study Indigenous wellness, like I said to you, and then I was serving a group of Indigenous seniors, and I was guided to this bookstore, and I found this book. I don't even know if I have it here. I wasn't planning on talking to you about it, but I actually do have it. And this, I was guided to a bookstore here. It's called Christ Returns, Reveal Startling Truth. And in these letters, it's actually a series of letters that were written through a woman who lived in South Africa up until maybe I think 3 years ago, and she passed away, I think, at the age of 102 or 103. And he worked with her. He also appeared to her in 1960, and he shared his true story of becoming enlightened, his baptism, what he actually experienced in the desert, and then how a lot of his teachings actually got covered up by the dogmatic institutionalization of his time, and his disciples that wrote about him much later, and they didn't fully comprehend his teachings. But much of what you shared with your about your son's revelations with his collective soul family or whatever he is channeling through is very much the reality he points us towards. And this concept of heaven is Christ reiterates through all of his teachings in these letters that it is really a state of consciousness of being in unconditional love, that we embody that presence and we have divine consciousness, the the universal consciousness that is our Father and Mother divine consciousness. When they are an operation of our heart and our mind, and we are guided by them in our life, everything comes into a perfect alignment. And we on our association, Light Heart Vision, we like to talk about co-creating heaven on Mother Earth. So that's home, creating home for everyone. So there are no more people who feel homeless in this world, and our children are able to thrive in their natural spiritual gifts. And there's a larger picture at play. And he calls for people from all faiths through these letters, whether they're Buddhist or Taoist or Islamic or even scientists and atheists, to come together and recognize that our consciousness actually creates the turmoils in our world. It is from our lack of awareness and our beliefs that need to be healed, that we are separate, that because that's the only the ego drive that thinks it's separate and doesn't see the oneness in all of life, and creates barriers to our loving creator that only wants to fulfill our needs. So there is that, and I feel like there is a reason that I always know there's a reason why I meet certain guests, but you in particular. Um, it would be my honor to share these letters with you, for you to decide whether they're true to you or not. To me, he says they are a bridge between his transcendent consciousness and ours. They're the most profound, straightforward writing that I have encountered, and they are not easily found in North America because I believe that to some level they've been suppressed. Um, uh, and so perhaps there are other parents who are on their healing journey that you will be encountering, that these could be of great blessing. In letter 9, he talks about reincarnation. He also mentions that we are all psychic. It's just a fact of existence. And so much of what you said would be, I think, even elevated in contemplating these letters. And you know, I want to say this too, and I my wish is that you receive it with as a balm, because I think we need community more than ever in our journey. And sometimes souls with big missions can go through really difficult things in their life, because it gives them the character that they need to forge through, whether it's going through intense traumas like yourself or other difficulties. It you take souls with important missions tend to take on the difficult things to grow through, so they can, you know, show up and impact lives more greatly. So I just want to say that I really um, I value your courage on a soul level, and I feel like your son does as well, Devin. And it's so interesting, and that, you know, when I was reading his name, I forgot to ask you before the show. I wasn't sure if it's pronounced Devon or Devyne, because it's written very differently than other Devons, and it looks like divine to
Yeah.
me. And I do believe that we all draw from a divine source of being. And there is more that I could share with you. I've had remembrances of who I was in that lifetime. And now what I'm doing now is building communities, helping communities develop in an interconnection model to really embody higher visioning, and where we actually are hosted on our school platform, so I could share with you more about that. But I do feel like your mission is really important. There are many parents out there who are not as open to their gifts, not as sensitively attuned to maybe hear, or I've noticed this with people. Well, everyone is a spiritual being having a spiritual experience, but people will push off experiences that they have that could open a door, like you were talking about writing on receipts and feeling your son's voice. It's easy to kind of maybe sometimes, if you're not as open-minded, to shrug those things off or to go into doubt, and that can close the gifts that we are trying to come through as we expand our consciousness. So I just want to thank you for your courage in, first off, being vulnerable, growing through these experiences, and then now serving people on a higher level. It's heartwarming, and I feel like more people need to hear this story that you have, and also the It's so interesting. I just want to say this one last thing. You mentioned before you came on, you were feeling almost like a sense of hopelessness today, and that's unique for you because, and I just want to shine a light, a reflective light to you, Jackie, because you not only are an embodiment of, like way beyond hope. You're an embodiment of that bridge that as we awaken as a species is going to become more and more to our loved ones in this eternal dance that we're on. So you are shining a much bigger light. So I just want to thank you for your vulnerability because I feel like coming on the show, even though you maybe weren't feeling totally, I feel like your raw authenticity and coming to it allowed a much deeper expression of who you are and what your journey has been. Anyways, I'll stop talking now. That was a lot.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I mean I feel like the vulnerability and being real. Um, my Devin has said over and over again through automatic writing, through mediumship readings, Ma, just be you.
Yeah.
And that has brought, I think, there's other people, who are coming into spirituality. There's other people who are awakening, and they can't relate, to some guru or something. So, the fact that I'm still grieving. My son is
Mhm.
not here physically. My body has went through a lot of, trauma, but, I know that there is more than what we can see. I know
Yes.
that he's still there, and I know that I have I have a perfect relationship with him.
Mm,
He now knows because I used to hide things from him mostly. The other
mhm,
kids knew I was drinking and this and that, but Devin, I would hide from him because
mhm,
he'd go tell the pastor, like I don't want him to know. So, he knows everything I've ever done in my entire life, and he
mhm,
still wants to come be with me. He
mhm,
still flows his love over me. He still brings me to a higher consciousness.
mhm.
And that is an experience that you just can't deny,
Yeah.
and so it helps so much that he knows everything I've ever done wrong, and he loves me anyways, and he brings, you know a higher consciousness beings to me. He brings the Christ energy to me. He
Mhm,
brings angels to me, and knowing everything I've ever done wrong with my life. So it really changes your perspective.
mhm. That unconditional love, right? And
Yeah.
to me too, this is really a worthy contemplation. Uh, the power that is love, and a power that is infinite and without boundaries. It's unlimited and it is eternal as well. And I feel like voices like yours remind us of this interconnection that we have with all of our relationships. And at the end of it, when the show is over in whatever way that we awaken, I've always had this sense since I was a little boy that, love has always been at the heart of it all. And I feel like we take on the polarity of experience, the veils of density in terms of coming into the body so that we can have the journey and have the experience of awakening to love again in a new way, in a more expanded way. And I feel like your son is a wonderful guide for you. And clearly, he's a goad for you in terms of pushing you towards your mission and likely fulfilling your what you intended to do to come here as a unique soulful self. I believe we all have a unique dharma or purpose to fulfill, and you're doing it. I mean, you're a published author. You are sharing your voice. You're helping parents heal, and you're expanding your organization with parents helping heal for your new initiative hand. I think it's amazing, Jackie. As much as it is easy from a human level to judge ourselves for our, imagine if we could all take on the perspective of your son with ourselves and with one another and just move on. I think it's such a beautiful message in and of itself. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you. And before we close, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you and to connect? How can they find your book?
Well, the book is on Amazon. It's From Murder to Messages. It has gotten a lot of people who say that I don't read. I can't read very well. I haven't read in a long time. They're picking it up. They're reading it. They're reading
Mm,
it in a couple of days. So
mm,
um, that was helpful. I kind of struggled with it when I wrote it because I mean I could have wrote a 500 page, just the worst life in the world stuff. And it just felt like I remember what it was like when I was grieving. I couldn't read a book,
mm,
or when I was first awakening and all these concepts, I didn't understand them. So it's not a great big long, 200-page sad story. And so I think that it's really helpful for people who are
mm,
just starting to awakening, who have questions. So if you have friends, and what I really love about it is I have complete strangers who will get a hold of me and say, "Oh my God, I feel like I know your son,"
mm.
because I tell some stories about him and his personality. And so that made my heart really happy too.
Yeah.
So it's called From Murder to Messages. It's on Amazon. That's the best way to get it. I have a website called JackieSuzanne.com. And you can book sessions with me through the website. I have a Facebook page that I love. I'm really partial to Facebook. It's From Darkness to Light. And like I said, I do free healings on it. Kind of starting to put a little community together on there. Um,
Beautiful.
so yeah.
That's beautiful, Jackie. No, I appreciate all the work that you're doing and putting yourself out there in the world. That's great. Well, I'd love to ask you this question. I our the Love Pod is all about amplifying important voices like yours. And so I love to ask our guests, and I'll ask you, if you had a megaphone and you could talk to the whole world all at once, and everyone could listen to you, what would you like to say?
I guess I'd have to say that we're not separate, that
Mm,
we are all created, we're all the creator, that we're all love, and that we don't have to hate each other. We don't have to fight with each other. That
mm,
it's really, my son tells me all the time, like, it's really not that serious. We're
mm,
gonna blink an eye and be back to heaven, be back to home. And you're gonna just find out, like, could have made this life a lot easier,
mm,
could have just loved more and received love more.
mm. It's a beautiful message. I feel like our littlest ones remind us of that, and our eldest ones remind us of that. And the quicker we can keep that remembrance, the better. So, what a profound, beautiful message. Thank you for sharing that so much, Jackie. Thank you for coming on the show today. Blessings to you and your family, and to all the ones you touch and bless through your work, your written work, and your Reiki, as well as to all of our listeners today. Blessings to all of you and your families. And if unless there's anything else that you'd like to share, I'd like to invite our daughter Luciana to come and say thanks for watching.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I would definitely be interested in the book that you recommended. So thank you
I
for
will.
doing that as well.
You're very welcome. I can send it to you, the whole complete version, and to any of the listeners out there, feel free to contact as well if you're interested in the Christ letters and any of our other work. You'll also receive. I know you're partial to Facebook, but if you ever like to explore school, to me, it's been a real blessing of true community. And you're going to receive a invitation to our community too. There are many of our other guests from the podcast have come on, and might be an interesting network that you can connect with people as well, Jackie. So with that,
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay, wonderful. Well, with that, I'm going to invite Luciana up to say thanks for watching, everyone.
For watching.
Thank you for watching.
Say have a great day.
Have a great day.
I love you.
I love
See you soon.
you. Soon.
Hey, bye. Macho. Mwah.
Woo!